everybody, welcome. It's time to shop for planners for next year. Also filling out all your journal dreams, and I sometimes get a little confused on the difference in the paper sizes. I've used a standard or regular size TN for my planner for years, but maybe I want to go with something bigger so I have more real estate and my eyes aren't quite as good as they used to be, and so maybe I want more room. Or maybe I want something even tinier that'll just fit in my pocket or my purse. So let's go through and look at these head to head in a very simple way, just this size next to this size next to this size, so that you can get a better idea of how they look compared to each other. I will, as per usual, put links in the description in case you would like to get one of these for yourself or a gift for someone else. And I will also put timestamps in the first pinned comment if you'd like to jump back and forth between the sizes. So maybe you went off shopping and you found that this layout was available in B6 and A5. And you want to see those, right next to each other. Here you go. You can come back and look at that. All right, so are there smaller notebooks than this? Yep, there certainly are. I have a tiny traveler's notebook that's this big. Are there bigger paper sizes than this? Yep, there are. But these are the biggest that will fit on my desk so that I can easily show you today. So we're gonna go from a passport B7 size up to a letter size, which is the white one in the background, okay? And I have to tell you that you really need to make sure to measure. You know how somebody will say, measure 3 times, cut once? It's the same way with traveler's notebooks, journals, planners, anything involving paper. There are companies out there that get a little bit confused by the names. And so sometimes a company will market this pocket size as a passport, or they'll call it personal, which might be this or something else. So definitely use this as a general guide of what kind of size you're interested in, and then read that description, look at the measurements, look in the pictures, because sometimes in the pictures it'll show the measurements off to the side. Check those. Look at the reviews to see whether people say, oh, this doesn't fit. If you're trying to fit something in a very specific cover, measure your cover, look at the description, make sure they match up, okay? It's not just what the title says. When I go through these today, I'm going to show you passport versus pocket versus A6, for example. I'm not gonna tell you all the centimeters and the inches. Those are in the description. So go down under the video and click more and open that up, and it'll tell you the exact dimensions of kind of the industry standard for each of these sizes. So the first one is the tiny one, the passport or B7. And then these are gonna go in order by width, okay? So the most narrow one is the passport, B7. These are super cute. They are easy to pop in a pocket or a little purse. You can get covers for them. This insert actually came with this little cover. I don't know the brand name, so I'm just gonna call it my passport traveler's notebook, and I'll put it in the description for you. Super, super cute. Just really good way to protect your notebooks. But to be perfectly honest, for these small ones, I just stash them in my purse. And I use these as jotters and I use them as sketchbooks. So just handy, right? And then in the same family of these tiny little ones is the pocket. So the only difference between the passport and the pocket is that the pocket is taller. That's it. They're the same width. They're usually approximately the same thickness. The difference is just pocket taller. That's it. So these are from a company called Twone, Twone. I'll put a link in the description to these. They have them in a black color and then also more of like a craft like this. And you can get them ruled or blank or grid. They have a sewn binding. They take watercolor really well, so they're great to use for sketching. And they're less expensive than the Moleskine pocket notebooks that are so popular, or the field notes that are so popular. So both great sizes for stashing in your pants pocket, your shirt pocket, or your purse. Okay, then the next size up is the A6, and here's how that compares to these. It is a little bit wider than both of them, and it is very slightly taller than the pocket. Okay, so this is the A6. Super cute. Very popular size. You'll see these, I think Wanderings might have an A6 for traveler's notebook inserts. I think Stalogy carries an A6. Very, very handy size, very, very portable. Okay, then we have the standard or regular size traveler's notebook. And different companies call it different things. Sometimes standard, sometimes regular. But these are a smidge wider than the A6 and then definitely taller. Your standard or regular size TN is definitely a tall rectangle. And these inserts are from Wanderings. These are my favorite. You can get them on both Amazon and Etsy. I'll put a link to both in the description. They're sewn binding, rounded corners. They take watercolor exceptionally well. Look at my pen test for this. So I've got fountain pens, gel pens, rollerball pens, different kinds of watercolors, some less expensive and more dye-based, some pigment-based, much, more artist quality, less likely to bleed through. And in any case, look at that. Other than the Sharpie, you can definitely use both sides of the page. So yeah, Wanderings have been my favorite lately for TN inserts. They are less expensive than Traveler's Company. And like I said, you can get them on Amazon or Etsy. So link in the description to those. I'm sorry I don't have an actual A6 notebook to show you, but that's how the size compares. So Passport, Pocket, A6, regular, or standard TN. Then we have B6, and it's going to be shorter than the regular or standard and wider. So this is the widest thing we've seen so far. And typically, I think your choice is not necessarily going to be this versus this. They're so different. Your choice is probably going to be this A6 versus the B6. So that's what they look like compared to one another. So the A6 is substantially smaller. I have pretty small hands, and the A6 is basically the size of my hand. And everyone else I know has bigger hands than me. And so most people's hands are probably more like a B6. Okay, but back in order with our widths, we'll put the standard back there. Okay, then we have Moleskine, and they don't follow the rules. They kind of do their own sizing, and this is their large size. So Moleskine large is technically an A5. It's the height of an A5, but it's chopped. So it's like an A5 slim. And this is what it looks like compared to the others. So the regular or standard size TN is the same height as the Moleskine large. But the Moleskine large is a little bit wider, but not as wide as an A5. And then there's that B6 peeking out, hiding in here. So that's the Moleskine large. And then we have the A5s, and these three are all labeled A5. They're all exactly flush, the same height, exactly the same. But the widths are slightly different, and that's typical. Most manufacturers of A5s might be just a little bit off from one another. So the first one on top is from Wanderings. These are Traveler's Notebook inserts, just like their standard or regular size. They have that same paper, takes watercolor exceptionally well. Look, the only thing that bleeds through is a Sharpie. That's it. Sharpie fine point and Sharpie ultra fine point. Everything else, including, look, all these watercolors, great. So I can use my technical drawing pens and paint. They're so great, and they're usually pretty economical. On Amazon and on Etsy. That's the A5 from Wanderings, and they're very, very, very slightly more narrow than other companies' A5s. That actually makes them great for using in an A5 size traveler's notebook like Newestor or September Leather has, because then they don't stick out too far. So that's the Moleskine large, and then you're gonna go a little bit wider. Same height, all these. Standard regular TN, Moleskine large, A5, all the same height. The only difference is the width, but that difference is important, especially with your leather journal covers. You need to make sure it fits in. Then this is kind of a unicorn in the notebook world. This is a Leuchtturm 1917 Jot book. And I think it's J-O-T-T book. They're not always available, but when you find one, they're pretty cool. They come in a set of 2, and they have pretty colors. But your normal Leuchtturms are also going to be this height and the width. So the 80 GSM notebook that's like 251 pages, that's the classic Leuchtturm, like the original bullet journal, that's this size. And the newer ones that have 411 pages, those are this size, same height, same width. So this is an A5 in Leuchtturm world, and it's just a smidge wider than the Wanderings, and definitely wider than the Moleskine, and substantially wider than the regular or standard size traveler's notebook. Okay, and then you have Midori MD Notebooks, which are really, really great paper. These are made in Japan. They have this kind of rough binding. It's just like the tape binding. You don't have any kind of other cover, but you can order separate covers, or they will fit in most A5 size leather covers. But they are, again, just a tiny bit, and I mean a tiny bit. It's almost imperceptible. Little bit wider than the Leuchtturm. So yeah, especially with A5, make sure you're getting out your tape measure to see exactly which size you want. All right, then we jump up from A5 to B5. B5 and composition books are often used interchangeably, but they are not the same size. So here's the B5 compared to the ones before it, and you'll see it's wider than the A5 and taller than the A5, okay? But look at it compared to the composition notebook. So the B5, depending on who's making it, is usually a smidge taller than a composition and more narrow than a composition. So it's a narrower rectangle. And a composition book, this is like those, did we call them slam books? You know, you go to the drugstore and they're like black and white kind of covers. Composition books, these are from Staples. They're made from sugar cane, so they're super eco-friendly. They have a brand on Amazon that I think is actually the same manufacturer that makes them for Staples, and it's called Mintra. So I'll put a link in the description if you would like to be, you know, good to the environment. These are just good old-fashioned, you know, school notebooks. You can get the regular kind at the drugstore, or you can go on Amazon or Staples and get one that's a little more eco-friendly. But composition is a little wider. B5 is more narrow. So they're in the same family, but they're just different enough that different covers may not work. And here they are compared to all the others. And then we have the letter size. And this is 8.5 by 11, typical copy paper in the United States. And of course you can get bigger from there. You can go to legal size, which is longer, and then it goes up from there. Great big poster board sizes if you want. But most of your traveler's notebooks, your planners, your journals, notebooks, diaries, most of the things that you find that you're going to sit down and fill the pages with your creativity, your productivity are going to be these sizes. So I will run you through these one more time. This is letter size, composition, B5, A5, Midori style, A5 Newestor style, A5 wandering style, Moleskine large, B6, standard or regular size traveler's notebook, A6, pocket, and passport. So there you go. I hope that helped you as you're shopping for your planners for 2026. Let me know, what is your preferred size? What do you like using? What's your comfort zone? I tend to do standard size traveler's notebooks for my planner, my TN, that's like my brain with a list book and a jotter and that kind of thing. That's this one. And then my journal where I sit down to write and be artful is usually A5. Those are my comfort zones. But honestly, as I get older, I think I might get some bigger notebooks because I like having a little more real estate. So let me know what you use. If you found something in here helpful, I hope you did. Please click like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Come back and see me for planning, journaling, anything to do with making your paper look pretty. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.